We do that, we're once again hearing reports of fairly significant queues and delays at Dublin Airport, in particular over parts of the weekend. And we spoke yesterday here on the show about the experience of trying to get a taxi from Dublin Airport. There were lots of people getting in touch with us about that, and there was more getting in contact again overnight on our email address. That's lunchtimelive@newstalk.com. Eoghan Corry is the editor of the Air and Travel magazine, and he's with me on the show today. Eoghan, just before we go through some of our listeners' queries, are there still queue problems at the airport?
Good afternoon, Andre. Another week, another crisis in Dublin Airport. Yes, the queue problem, the security queue problem hasn't gone away. They did a lot to try and organise it with rostering and with different facilities put in to make sure people were in the right queue and ready. But the problem is it's unpredictable. It can be great today and horrible tomorrow.
So what's the advice then?
The advice is still 2.5 hours short haul, 3.5 long haul. People aren't missing their aircraft as they did in the first week. It was caused a few weeks ago. Listeners will remember when the summer schedules came in and the number of flights through the airport had more than doubled in one weekend. That really showed up the holes in the system, which are not unique to Dublin Airport. The Airport Council of Europe issued a statement just a few days ago apologising to the flying public, because this is something that has pockmarked the EU airports across the continent. They let a lot of staff go during COVID. The return to flying was quite probably more than people anticipated, including the airlines and the airports. And now they're all facing a very similar problem of staffing, and obviously you can't pluck someone off the street and put them into security.
I went through the airport on Thursday morning, bright and early on Thursday morning, Eoghan, and I took your advice that you gave me here on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I was there 2.5 hours in advance, and I had absolutely no bother at all. I was through gate to gate in 33 minutes to be precise about it. So I was kind of shocked yesterday when I came in this morning and saw these emails that were sent in yesterday from people talking about long security delays again. I thought it was all addressed. We
have seen situations, Andre, where it's 10 minutes in one terminal and 45 minutes in another. And, let's go back to 2019, BC, before COVID. If there was a queue of 30 minutes, the internal alarm system within Dublin Airport would go off to try and get something to get that unacceptable 30 minutes level of security queue down. People are very happy with 30 minutes at the moment because it has gone more.
And I have a lot of questions coming in from people for you today, queries from listeners that we'll put to you. 53106 is the number if people want to text in a question, or if you want to call us either. That's 1800 453 106. Liam is on the line. Liam, what's your issue?
My issue is I myself and my wife were both over 80 years of age. We travelled from Alicante to Dublin with Ryanair on last Saturday morning, But we went for help when we got to the airport, which was 2 hours before take-off time. And we were sitting there for almost 2 hours. And there was a scarcity of wheelchairs with Eoghan, And which was up till we got to the Ryanair. They rushed us through at the last minute then. And we got to the Ryanair check-in desk, and one says, you're late checking in, we want €60 off you. And I said, well, I'm not paying €60, but she said, you're not getting on the plane unless you pay €60.
So you had to pay...
The force is to pay €60 because Eoghan had us up for 2 hours because they hadn't enough wheelchairs.
And that was on the Alicante side?
That was on the Alicante side. And that wasn't the only thing. The Dublin airport, and they had supposed to have a help for you. So we were waiting 20 minutes on the plane for this package to arrive out. And there was only room for 8 people on it. And some people that had on a little more than they wouldn't have helpers on with the people who were just had disabilities,
Eoghan, what should Liam do, or is there anything he can do?
There is. You can go back to the Spanish authorities, the aviation authorities, and seek your compensation from them. There is a European consumer legislation which applies there, which means that you do have rights, and the European Consumer Office in Molesworth Street are very interested in these affairs. One of the things that has happened across Europe's airports is not just the pent-up demand that things have actually come back at a higher level. They are noting that the peaks have got higher and the troughs have got lower during the day at airports like Alicante, at the big airports like Charles de Gaulle, like KLM, like Heathrow, like KLM hubs, Amsterdam, and like Heathrow and Frankfurt. This was always a problem. An airport works in a sort of a number of waves. There's an awful lot of flights, for instance, in Dublin, between 7 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock, and then it goes down to a trough and then it comes back to a higher one. Some airports, the busier ones, will have 7 of those during the day. One of the really unusual things that's happened since COVID is that the number of flights have been concentrated into shorter little bursts of activities. So something like wheelchairs in Alicante, it's supplied by an independent supplier to the airport. They have their responsibility to get you to the check-in desk. It's not when you get there, Ryanair behave as if this has nothing to do with them. And they in Alicante, it's not even Ryanair staff, it's a subcontracted staff by another service company who supply Ryanair. So all of those bits leave a listener like Liam at the mercy of the parts of the jigsaw not fitting together properly. But he does have the rights to go back to chase his money back from the people responsible. And the people responsible in this case are the airport operators for the whole of Spain.
Do you have to book if you want in advance?
Yes.
Actually, there's a follow-up text there from Liam's own. Do you have to book assistance in advance of travelling to the airport?
Yes, there is on all the airline sites. There is an option as you're checking in. Do you need assistance? And if you check that, the assistance will be booked for you. There will be a separate questionnaire as to what you need. They are very efficient. The Dublin Airport, again, it's subcontracted, but everybody who's going to the airport will see people bringing people with, they don't have to be fully disabled, but with mobility issues. Also an issue that if you're in a big busy hub airport, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Charles de Gaulle, Frankfurt, Heathrow are examples, and you're getting through and you're not going to make the gate because you're a little bit slower to walk, or indeed you have 3 small children hanging on to you, do get to the airline transfer desk and look for the assistance there. Now, generally it's available, but as I say, every airport in Europe is facing this post-COVID situation where they aren't able to meet the surge in demand. It's like an electricity surge in demand that comes and then disappears in an hour.
Liam, I hope that helps in some way, and thanks
Hopefully,
a million for getting in touch with us here on the programme. 1800 453 106 is the number if you do want to get in contact. Sean is on the line as well. Sean, what did you get in touch about?
Well, my issue, Andrea, was when I returned after 2 weeks away. No, the flight was delayed by an hour, so it was just after midnight by the time I got to the long-term car park, long-term blue, and I found my car was vandalised, and, I've been dealing with it since,
But what was the extent of the damage, or what did you see when you got there, Sean?
Well, the car, however, started, but I subsequently found out that the catalytic converter and the exhaust system had been removed.
Removed?
And yeah, it had been taken from the car, cut off.
And where did you have it parked, Sean?
I had it parked in Z32, the long-term blue car park.
So you parked it there 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks on Friday the 29th and returned on Friday the 13th, how appropriate, to find my car wrecked, basically.
So, and it was only when you got in and started it, Sean, that you noticed this, was it?
Well, no, it's actually a hybrid car, so it starts on the battery, so I didn't notice anything until we were actually moving, until the actual engine kicked in, and then all hell broke loose,
So
at that stage, I was actually out of the car park. I was actually outside the barrier, But there was nobody there anyway. There was no security, nobody around to report it,
So what time of the day or the night, sorry, Sean, did you say this was?
We arrived in about 1 o'clock. So I presume it was about 1:30 we would have got to the car park, and we were there about an hour.
In the morning or in the afternoon?
In the morning, AM.
Right. So you made your way over by the shuttle bus or something, did you?
Bus, yeah.
So you got off, you got to the car, you started the car, you started to drive, and then you noticed. And what did you hear?
Oh, just like a sound, but it sounded like it just without like a car without an exhaust, basically, you know. So just really noisy. So my first idea was just it was damage to the exhaust, that was a blown exhaust or something. But the car was drivable. But when I brought it back the following day to my mechanic, I realised like that the grill had been cut, the alarm had been immobilised. There was quite a lot of damage, actually about €3,000 worth of damage at this point, you know.
So you found all this out from the mechanic the following day, but when you realised something was initially wrong, you turned and went back to the blue long-term car park, but there was no one there to...
Well, as we were leaving, we didn't see anybody. It's an automated system, and we didn't see anybody. So, like on Saturday, I tried to contact the DA. So the only means of contacting him was through a customer experience email, which I sent him I sent him my experience, which wasn't good, needless to say, but I've heard nothing back. You know.
So you sent this email on Saturday gone by.
Yes. On Saturday. I also contacted the airport police, and they really, which I found shocking really, because they didn't seem to want to know what had actually happened, because the car at that stage was not in the airport.
It was gone from the property.
Yeah, but yet they didn't seem to have any interest in the fact that there was a crime committed and my car was left in possibly a very dangerous condition, you know. Like, I didn't realise until my mechanic informed me that the wiring had been cut. So perhaps the airbags had been disabled, or the brakes might have been damaged when they were cutting off there was power tools used to cut off the exhaust, you know. So a fuel line or brake lines could have been damaged, you know.
Right.
So to me, myself and my wife's life was put at risk by this event, you know. And other road users, but like I was amazed actually that the airport police didn't seem to see it in that light at all.
And when did you contact the airport police, Sean?
On the Saturday as well.
On the Saturday.
Yeah.
So we're now at Tuesday, and you've had no.
I've had no response from anybody at this point in time, except your good self. Right.
Well, I mean, I don't know what or if there is anything we can do, but we can certainly contact the communications department in the airport at the DAA and see if they've any response or what the story is. I mean, at a minimum, you'd imagine someone would get back to you.
Well, what I'd like to know, Andre, is that on their website they advertise their parking facility as safe and secure. Well, I think that's incorrect advertising, because my experience is my car certainly wasn't safe and certainly wasn't secure.
And do you mind me asking, what was the fee for the 2 weeks, Sean?
€150.
€150.
Yeah.
Did you see? I presume there must be CCTV or something around there, is there?
Well, I presume there should be, but I can't answer that. I don't know.
You'd imagine there would be, wouldn't you?
Well, like I could have given them a specific time that they knew the times the car was in the car park, and I could tell them exactly when we arrived back to it. It should be all on CCTV, I'd imagine. But Andrea, there doesn't seem to be any responsibility on their behalf other than bring your car in, leave it there, pay the money, and look, Bob's your uncle, and good luck. And
have you got on to the guards about it?
I've been on to my local guards here in Wexford, and they're there to come to take a statement from me. You know?
Okay. Well, look, we'll reach out to the DAA, Sean, and we'll see if we can get some kind of a response. And if we hear anything, we'll certainly be in touch with you. But look, I hope you get sorted.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Yeah. I really appreciate that.
No problem
I'd certainly like to hear from the DAA, and I'd like to know what they think.
Okay. Well, look, as I said, we'll reach out to them today. Sean, mind yourself, and thanks for getting in touch.
Thank you very much, Andrea.
Eoghan, have you any advice for Sean?
Yeah, I can't give anything very specific to Sean. That sounds, I know, like a dog ate my homework answer. Can't talk about the specific case, but there are a couple of really important general points that can be made here. First of all, Dublin Airport is secure. The car parks have CCTV. They've very good surveillance. They've got pretty much the latest technology in this matter. Second of all, my own experience with the car park people and with the Dublin Airport is that there is someone at the end of the phone. It's not a trend. A trend normally has been to guide anyone towards web chat and email. Dublin Airport does have people taking advice. I know in my own personal case, when I've been on about issues with the car park, we have 1,500 fewer car parking spaces, a lot of pressure on car park, that there is someone at the end of the phone that gives you genuine advice. I would expect the reaction from Dublin Airport when Sean comes back with that specific incident of vandalism in the car park is that because of the legal and insurance background we have now, nobody's going to say, oh, your car was vandalised on our watch. They're going to, to look for the dates, look for the reaction, and nobody's actually going to come and say, hands up, this was something that we acknowledged happened.
I actually, would you believe, I have a statement here.
Oh, brilliant, excellent,
from the DAA actually about it, and they say, we followed up with our customer experience team about the incident who you were made aware of in the car park. We've no report which matches your description. We do encourage anyone who would have an experience such as this to please make contact with the customer experience team. Sean, if you're still listening, get back in touch with them and tell them that you got the statement here through Lunchtime Live and Newstalk, and follow up with them again on that.
And very importantly, Andre, your consumer rights are not affected really by somebody saying, if there is disinterest as he claimed, your consumer rights are still there. Once it goes into the Garda Pulse network and the incident reports and everything, it activates a system. Dublin Airport take this really seriously. They're not being blasé about vandalism.
Fair enough.
Even things like a drop mobile phone in a car park, they're amazing at finding it. They actually get out, roll their sleeves up and go looking for things that people have lost. They have a fairly good record on this.
Good to hear. And stay with us because we've Jared on the line as well. Jared, what's your query?
My query is that I'm a taxi driver, and recently the DAA reissued new permits, and there was 5 criteria, and the only criteria I did not meet was that the car had to be wheelchair accessible. And the reason I don't meet this criteria is to have a very mild case of cerebral palsy, which prevents me from operating a wheelchair vehicle. I wouldn't be able to latch one into even if the car was adapted, I wouldn't be able to latch one in or safely manoeuvre the vehicle, the wheelchair user into the vehicle. And I've made the DAA aware of this, and they just keep coming back in with the circular answer saying that, sorry, you don't meet the criteria. Sorry, you don't meet the criteria. No, this is nothing to do with your disability. I keep pointing out the only reason I don't meet this one particular criteria is because of my disability. Okay. And I always thought, like with government guidelines, at least 3% of the workforce should be amenable to the disabled community. But this is a permit issue, not a workforce issue.
Right. There's a lot of discussion actually on Corry about this here in the programme yesterday, about being able to get permits at the airport, and the DAA said that they have issued new permits recently and that there was no cap on them. But I mean, we've loads of stories from people here taxi drivers talking about not being able to get them, and people talking about not being able to get a taxi.
Yeah, I've great time for the taxi drivers. They do terrific work, and the airport is a tough gig. There's a little extra charge for the airport, but one of the reasons is it is a tough gig. The holding of taxi drivers with Dublin Airport pre-COVID has always been an issue down the years. They're kept in an area off-site, and they're let up in batches so that there isn't this huge queue of taxi drivers. There are traffic management issues already in Dublin Airport. That became a story a few weeks ago when they talked about charging for dropping off people at the airport, which is coming in the autumn. But what the management of that is, there is somebody to decide what the level of demand for taxis is going to be. Generally, there's the arrival of the American flights in the morning. The taxi drivers have a great phrase among themselves. It's the first yank, the first person off the US flights, which arrive from sometime like 5:45. So generally there's a good number of taxis are released for that. But it's back to this thing of reading how the traffic operates, both the airline traffic and the passenger traffic post-COVID, and there's subtle changes in it. There's been a few problems with that because I've heard myself of long queues for taxis. Releasing the taxis from the holding area, the holding pen, the taxi drivers call it long kesh, which is a throwback to a previous generation, and then they arrive and they're picking up with the passengers in a timely, orderly manner. That seems to have been a little bit troublesome in recent weeks.
Okay.
But the issue of permits, again, not just Dublin Authority are involved in this, the carriage office is involved in this, and the aim is that everybody should have disabled access arriving in the airport.
Eoghan, just a quick one. Darren in Galway wondering about check-in desks being open, and another texter wondering, travelling to Spain this Tuesday, 6:15 a.m, need to check in bags. What time should we be at security or at the airport?
The same thing applies. Now, what we've seen is check-in desks open half an hour earlier in the case of most airlines than had been the case, to deal with the queues, because the queues were not just security, the queues were actually the bag drop queues. We've an issue with the people are managing automated bag check-in with airlines like Ryanair. There being some sort of tweaks to that during COVID as well. So all of that it sometimes takes a little bit of time for people to figure out. And that is, the Ryanair queue is at one end of Terminal 1, and the queue reading from that can lead back into the security queue when it gets long, which is exactly at the opposite end of Terminal 1. And if you're there at the wrong time of the morning, you've got a couple of the long-haul airlines, Etihad and Qatar, fly out of Terminal 1 as well. So they have particularly long queues as well, with a lot of baggage.
So is 4 a.m. time enough?
4 a.m. will be time enough. You're going to
flight.
For a 6:15 flight. You're going to deal with the bag check-in queue is not going to be more than 1 hour, and the security queues, as I say, 40 minutes, and generally security queues have not gone beyond the 1 hour. The fast track, if you buy it, can be up to 30 minutes when the ordinary queue gets long, but that should be time enough. But there's a lot of it's really there's an awful lot of extra stress by the queues merging into each other in Terminal 1, and sadly nothing can be done about that.
Okay. Eoghan, Corry, thanks a million as always.
Always a great pleasure,
here in
Andrea.
the programme today. Lunchtime live at newstalk.com.